Good evening and welcome to the Monday, April 7th meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission. We'll start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jacob Miller.
Present.
Alder Jim Hutchinson.
Present.
Commissioner Darius Daniels.
Present.
Commissioner Ken Rovinsky.
Present.
Commissioner Emma Fullwilder.
Present.
And Commissioner Kelsey Lutzow.
Excused.
She is excused. Okay. All right, moving on to approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda for the Monday, April 7th, 2025 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rovinsky, second by Commissioner Daniels. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes from the March 10th, 2025 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Fullwilder, second by Commissioner Rovinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then moving on to regular business, and the first item is a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Gazette. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, and whether you favor, oppose, or are only providing information in this matter. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we will now open the public hearing on item number 1. Public hearing on a request for a planned unit development to create a multifamily residential use located at 306 and 308 Mather Street, 709 Alma Street, 301 James Street, 305 James Street, 307 James Street, and 309 James Street, submitted by Colin Arndt of Somerville applicant, Terry Refsgard of New Community Shelter, Inc., property owner.
Thank you, Chair. So the parcels that you're looking at are at the aforementioned Mather, Alma, and James. On this screen, you're seeing Mather up in the central portion of the screen. You see the existing NAB community shelter, the existing clinic that is at the corner of Broadway and Mather. What is being proposed is right now 7 individual parcels that have 7 individual single-family homes to be removed, and then to put a 41-unit multi-family building in its place. Future land use for the property, so it calls for light industrial. You'll note that here back to the areas to the south. These areas in the zoning have PUDs, so is this one. So the PUD overlay is what's going on top. The area has been built out with different types of commercial and multi-use. For this parcel itself, you're going to notice as far as the zoning, it's R3 multifamily. The typical use inside of a multifamily, inside of R3 is multifamily uses. But we're here today because the property that they're looking to combine the parcels into doesn't quite fit what would be straight zoning because of the alley that happens to separate both the north and south side of the properties that have been purchased. And we do feel that this meets the uses for a PUD on the site. So NAB Community Shelter is looking to put up a 4-story building on that property. I'll go back now. So the building itself would be back over here towards Mather, with parking happening back over here towards James. They are looking to put up said 41-unit building on the property with the parking on the northern part of the property. As noted, there's an alley that runs through the property. You cannot combine those parcels unless you happen to vacate the alley. So that was the impetus for the PUD to begin with. On the site, staff, as noted, staff felt that as they are looking to put up 41 multi-family units, that is integrated back into the NAB community shelter, that this type of use met qualifications for PUD. Now, that said, they're multi-family units. It's not a shelter. They are connected back to the shelter as far as their operations, but they're 41 individual units at this property. I will note here, let's go on here to the elevations. The properties themselves would then be facing up along Mather and onto Alma, with some community space in the back of the property, and then parking back to the north. So why are we here today for a PUD? There are a few exceptions as to what they're asking for that go above and beyond R3. As noted, the biggest thing is it's 2 parcels, it's not 1. So in that northern part of the property, where all the parcels get combined, that use would be accessory to the multifamily, with it being parking. There has to be a primary use, even though this functions as 1 contiguous lot. That was part of the reason why we're here for the PUD. The other issues that come into play is there are 6 different parts that vary from the code, but staff felt that was still appropriate based on this location near the downtown and near PUDs that use downtown as its base zoning. So the density required in R3 would be 1,500 square feet per lot area. The petitioner is seeking 400. Now, where does this come into typically in bulk requirements for lots? We come into impervious surface and come into parking. In this plan, they meet the requirements for both green space and for parking on the property. With the 41 units, they are trying to find a way to get 37 parking stalls on the property. Typically speaking, to have a 1 to 1.25 ratio, which would equal 51 stalls. Now, with the combination of shared parking across the street, the shelter, which is overparked, and with additional space for bicycle parking on the property that can limit the amount of required parking stalls, they'll hit the metrics for parking without any sort of differences to the PD itself. They also meet it for landscaping. They're over the requirements for R3 in this area. They're asking for the maximum height of the building to go past the 45-foot limit for R3 to 52 feet. Typically, that would be if it was just that as the only question, it would be a CUP question that would come in front of you, not a PUD. But the PUD can take care of that question in general. Staff is content with that, especially given the nature of the other taller buildings back over in the district itself. And this is additionally, the setback on the western property line with our landscape standards for a multifamily adjacent to single-family or 2-family homes is required to have a 25-foot buffer. They are requesting a 22.5-foot buffer along the west property line. Now, even though these properties that are out back to the west are technically would be a conditional use, the primary use is, the principal use would be for multifamily. They exist. So our landscaping code would note that it has to be a 25-foot barrier with a 90% opaque barrier on a year-round basis. Because of that, in the PUD, we note that it should go up to 100% rather than 90 to try to find a balance between allowing for the extra 2.5 feet and having the opaque levels change with this. This one's a bit picky, but we're going to note it here just because we're being picky with things. The distance of the parking lot throat length off the driveway to be reduced from 18 feet to 5 feet. I'm going to get into this later as far as what the alley means, but keep in mind, at least for the moment, this is an alley, it's a public alleyway. And so with throat to a multifamily, the throat is the area where you're seeing the driveway approach a public right of way. Code calls for that to be a minimum of 18 feet. They're asking for 5 feet in length there. The reason why it's 18 is imagine a typical car. You're parked up right against the driveway itself. You have space until you're not blocking somebody in. You can see around a car. They're asking for 5 in this case. The front yard setback along the north plane of Mather reduced to 9.3 feet, and then for Alma Street reduced to 6 feet. So the closest this plane here gets is 6 feet, and the closest this gets is 9.3 feet. Code would state that you have to match the block to what's existing to the other 2 parcels. Now, this takes the majority of the block, and if we're in typical R3, it either be matching the block or 15 feet. It actually meets the existing half of the homes, there's just 2, back over here to the closest property. This one's actually sticking out further than the 6.2 feet, but the corner lot is set back a bit further back. So on average, this happens to be a little bit closer than what the averaging will allow for. And over here, there is no other buildings to compare it to. But if we go back to what's there right now and where these buildings line up, if you took the existing homes facing Alma, they're also within that same 6 foot or so setback off of Alma in the front yard for them. But those homes are going away. Additionally, so this is, if you have two parcels, we're taking the uses for these two parcels and looking at it as one individual product, not two individual parcels. So for the accessory use, i.e. the parking, which would not be allowed as a principal use on a lot, we're looking at it as just one overall parcel. Back on March 24th, there was a neighborhood meeting for this project. It included about 16 folks or so at that meeting. Alders Prophet, Alders Johnson were there. At that meeting, the largest issue that came into play was people saying, what about the alley? Could the alley go away and just become private property? Let's go back to the overall block itself. There are two properties west of this development that happen to share access off of the alley. From a staff perspective, as far as the alley goes, we're indifferent whether it was vacated or not. The alley can function as a driveway for this property and can keep on going this way. But we let NEW and the neighbors know if they wanted to move forward with an alley vacation, if it was all parties agreed, they could do that. So last week, all three property owners came forth and asked for an alley vacation as well. That's not being asked or considered here tonight. It would be considered at the next plan commission meeting. But I just want to let you know that with that in mind, they are looking to eliminate the alley as being a public access point. I think to most people who are looking at this, they wouldn't say no difference, other than in the future with that, we do note in the staff report that the barrier should keep on going then up here to separate the driveway on the western portion of the property, because it would not have any ingress, egress going to the private property owner. So if that alley were to be vacated, the property owners back over to the west would have to have a signed agreement to where they would share the driveway or alley to be their own property, and then this driveway would become part of the community shelter's overall development. And at that point, we require this to become one wholesale property. That was the largest issue that was brought up by neighbors at that meeting. And it does seem like we have some here today to potentially lend their voices to this public hearing.
All right. So I don't have anyone on my list for item number 1, so if you are looking to speak on this item, please come to this podium and state your name and address for the record. And then you have a timer for 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm within 3 minutes.
Yeah, all right.
I do this a lot. My name is Mark Berglund. I live at 806 North Broadway. I'm aware that the shelter already owns these properties. I'm wondering how many people were displaced in these 7 homes. I know this isn't the time to get my questions answered, but I'll put them out there anyway. Maybe when you are back in regular session and the floor is closed, they could be addressed. I believe the shelter has a program with apartments in their existing building that is for people that are employed trying to get integrated back into normal life, which is a great program. I've heard a few success stories from this program. This new development will have units that will be screened by the NEW staff. One of my questions is, will these units be occupied by people that are currently in that shelter program, like they have in their current building? Are these units just an addition to their successful program that they have now? Or will these units be rented or leased out to the general population? If they're just trying to expand their program, I feel that's a great thing. It's much needed in our community. Some more of that we could use. If it just turns into rental units for the general public, I wouldn't necessarily support it as much, But I do understand if that was the case, it would essentially become a source of generating funds for their shelter, and I would accept that. A wise man once told me, you can't stop progress, so make it work for you. That was my father, who was on Door County Resource and Planning Board for a lot of years. So, which leads me to my next comment. At my house at 806 North Broadway, we park off of our alley. That's the only way that we have access to our house from the alley, other than the street. So we park out of our alley. When we exit our alley to the south, we would be looking right at the proposed parking lot of this development. Also, we can see it from our backyard, looking straight at the proposed parking lot. Where all we see right now are houses and yards and things like that. I looked at this proposed plan, and I don't know that this is, it's that one right there. I don't know if that's the final concept or whatever, but I see that this plan says that there is 15 feet of green space between the sidewalk and parking lot. Also, there is several trees in the easement between the curb and the sidewalk. I'm wondering whether there is more that can be done there, like maybe a berm or some additional shrub plantings for better aesthetics, visuals for those of us who used to see houses but are now just seeing a parking lot. Also in the plan, on this plan, on the west lot line of this plan, between Mather Street and the alley, here it says there is a privacy fence / arborvitae. If this plan goes through as is like this, does that privacy fence extend to the north side of the alley to shield the property owner northwest of this parking lot? It doesn't say whether that would continue north of the alley.
So the 3 minutes is up.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Thank you so much.
Can I just make one last comment?
One comment.
Okay. Anyway, before the planning commission and ultimately the city council approves this, maybe they can look at some additional planting beds, shrubs, berms on the James and Alma Street sides of the parking lot to soften it up a little bit, to make it a little more eye-pleasing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
On vacating the alley?
Nope, strictly on
Oh,
item
sorry.
number 1, the public hearing for the PUD.
Okay, sorry. Nope, that's okay.
Anyone else?
Can I speak on
You can speak on item number 1.
my daughter's behalf?
Absolutely, just state your name and address for the record.
Okay. So what I'm wondering is...
Name and address for the record, sir.
David Osborne, and I live at 2043 Farland, and I'm speaking on behalf of my stepdaughter. And she's concerned about her house value. She's going to be right up against the 306 James Street is where she lives. So she's concerned about her property value decreasing, and what kind of compensation do we do for that? Because, and then, of course, her view is going to be blocked. You got to figure that there's people are not going to want to buy that house anymore, or I should say it probably will decrease in value because of the situation. So that's the concern of what she wanted to bring up. Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
My name is Bill Morgan. I live at 2405 Grouse Court in Green Bay. I am an alderman for the city of Green Bay, not for this district at all, but I've had a chance to talk to the people that are involved from NEW. I've known them for years. And I'm very impressed with the programs they're doing. We all know in Green Bay we have a terrible, just like across the whole world, of homelessness. And to me, this is a very positive idea. When they work with people, they send people back out that have bank accounts, that have jobs, and they're trying to make their lives better. With this, we're going to solve a problem with some inexpensive housing, and it's not just for homeless, it's for the people that we want to get back in life with a great lifestyle. So just as an alderman, I just thought I'd speak up, and for 1 and 2, it would be the same thing. I am in support of this, just because I think it's good for our city of Green Bay to take care of a couple different problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 2, consideration with possible action on a request for a planned unit development to create a multifamily residential use located at 306 and 308 Mather Street, 709 Alma Street, 301 James Street, 305 James Street, 307 James Street, and 309 James Street, submitted by Colin Arndt of Somerville, applicant, Terry Refsgard of NEW Community Shelter, Inc., property owner.
Thank you, Chair. So to address some of the questions that were posed during the public hearing, when it comes to the 41 individual units, they are apartment units. Now, with this being owned by NEW, they are being used in a supportive measure with the operations over at NEW. But if in the future, at some point, this wanted to just be simply 41 apartment units, it could be sold off and used as 41 apartment units. Keep in mind, the base zoning here calls for apartments as the most principal use in this area. Good questions brought forth as far as the landscaping and the setbacks and what would actually come forth. This would not be an approved landscape plan, what you're seeing right here. It's giving an idea of what would happen, but if I go back to sub K in the PUD itself, it references back to the typical landscaping code in chapter 44. The only difference we have here is that buffer for the 25 to 22 and a half. Otherwise, when it comes to building foundations, perimeter landscaping, parking lot landscaping, it would have to meet the qualifications in our pretty robust landscaping code, which in that requires elements of, I believe, on the parking, up to either 3 or 4 feet in height for your barrier, which could be a combination of landscaping, plantings, fencing, berming along that edge. And then along the western side, doing the raising that number from 90 to 100% opaque to at least south of where the alley is, because it's closer in that area compared to what would typically be allowed. So there will be more landscaping, not just around the parking lot and along the areas up along the residential properties to the west, but then along the building itself, building foundation, typical screening of mechanicals, things of that sort. And then to address what it means to the rest of the block, I'll go back to the conditional use is a single-family home. If for some reason a home was torn down in this block on a parcel and wanted to be rebuilt, it would come back to this board for conditional use. If somebody came forth, met all the qualifications for bulk requirements for a multifamily, you wouldn't see this board. It would just be something that we do administratively. And what caused this to come to us initially was first trying to figure out, does this mean, were we going into the group home or multifamily? And it was determined, no, it's a multifamily type of use. And then secondly, the 2 parcels initially were the issue that really pushed forth the PUD. Now, as noted, because of the alley vacation that's going to be presented to this board here in 3 weeks' time, that alley could go away, but we still feel the PUD is makes sense here. So with that in mind, staff does recommend the PUD request, subject to compliance with all their regs in chapter 49.
So how many homes are on the other side of this block? Is it 4?
I believe it's 5. There's a very small parcel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And the 2 people who are butted up next to the alley seem to be okay with the development if they're looking to also.
Right. Those 2 property owners agreed
Right,
and put
because
forth
all
an
3 of them
application
agreed, right.
for an application, yes.
In terms of the density, so number 1 there, can Can you just review that real quick? So it's, the required is 1,500.
Yes. So typically speaking, for an apartment complex, usually on a bit more of a sprawled area, usually if we're talking R3, more campus-like setting, you can see, perhaps more in a suburban type situation. And then we're looking back to, are they meeting the setback requirements? Are they meeting the parking lot? Are they meeting green space? So the only change here is that 25 to 22.5 for setbacks. Otherwise, they will meet the code as written right now for parking lots and for parking spaces and for impervious surface on the property.
Interesting, the a parking lot.
That's what I'm struggling with. Is this
I mean, I
surface lot?
realize that, I mean, there's only so much you can do, but
What's the trade-off?
I'm
I
still
guess?
salty about that parking lot behind that one building on the corner of Kellogg.
Never gonna bring it up.
Yeah. that one.
I'll note in discussions with the group, what we as staff felt was most appropriate was having the front entry and placing the building back towards the predominant street, which would be Mather.
Yeah, they're right.
And not having this look of a suburban nature where if you're gonna have a parking lot, you face it towards your main street.
And then that kind of gives a buffer to a lower, to the houses that are on James Street. How do the setbacks on Alma, how do they feel? Does it feel similar to like that United Way building on Walnut Street?
Right. So are we talking along Walnut or along the?
Along
road
Walnut,
itself?
right toward East High,
Right.
that 4-story, it's really close to the sidewalk.
It's close to the sidewalk, this would be.
There's no
further.
green space, I don't think even, so that even, this has green space, I don't think,
This would be further off the road than that.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And I'll note the existing buildings are closer to the road than what's there right now.
Alright,
It's
okay.
closer to the road than what's proposed.
Okay.
Move to approve with the listed conditions.
Second.
So you have a motion by Vice Chair Miller, a second by Commissioner Ravinsky. Do you have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward then to City Council for, is it the 15th? For April 15th. All right, moving on to item number 3, and item number 3 is a public hearing. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Gazette. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items, and we invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor or oppose or only providing information in the matter, and your comments or concerns. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we will now open the public hearing on item number 3. Public hearing on a request to amend the Smart Growth 2022 Comprehensive Plan for 1135 Guns Road, 1141 Guns Road, and the 1100 block of Guns Road from future low-density residential land use to medium-high-density residential and light industrial land uses, submitted by Todd DeVillers of TMD Properties on behalf of 12 LLC, Nelson Yer Melgar, and Keith Schneider property owners.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry for the mouthful there. So this item is attached to, obviously, our action item next, and then also the next zoning item. So Pat, I'll do one spiel for all 4 of those items. We are talking about the properties that are located right at the border of the village of Bellevue. So this is Walmart on the east side. Main Street, Guns Road, there is, I think it's like an Enterprise or some sort of car rental, and then a tavern here. So this has been a green vacant lot for about ever. And then there are 2 single-family homes here along Guns Road. So looking at the existing future land use designation, it calls for low-density residential. This designation was done when this was all one parcel, when those single-family homes existed. So those homes were built before or at the time of annexation into the city. So we kind of inherited those homes, but they were all on one parcel up until 2022. When we did the land division to divide these off, we did not follow up with a comprehensive plan amendment update, because we typically don't unless there's a project associated with it, which is why this all still shows the low-density land use, or land use for future land use. However, the zoning for all three of these parcels is C1 commercial. That has been in place also for at minimum 23 years. We think longer, but we've been able to at least establish for the past 23 years it's been C1 zoning here. That is done in part because Main Street's one of our main commercial districts. You'll see nearly exclusively commercial zoning along the Main Street corridor from downtown all the way through to the city edge. So for this proposal, they are looking to amend the future land use map and then also the zoning. This will be based off of a future land division that has not been submitted yet, that will look a little bit like this. So one parcel along the back, mostly fronting Guns Road, would be for multifamily uses. And then a parcel along Main Street that would be for the industrial uses. But I'll note that there is a drive entrance to Guns Road. So that's the proposed lot configuration. This is being done mostly because there is limited access along Main Street, with that being a state highway. So they would be able to be granted right-in, right-out access, and that's for any future development along this portion of Main Street, so then the full access would be along Guns Road. So this is the property lines that we're talking about. We're looking at making the amendments to both the future land use map and then to the zoning map. We do have a requirement listed within the zoning portion of this action that it would have to follow the lines of a future CSM. But again, this has not been submitted yet. So we won't be following these parcel lines. Lot A will be the residential portion, Lot B is the industrial portion. So the request is to change the Lot A portion back here to medium high density housing to then fall in line with the zoning request for our varied density R3 zoning. So that would be for 2 30-unit buildings for multifamily. And then the other portion would be the front portion along Main Street, Lot B, would be for light industrial. So light industrial as the designation, and then again as that zoning to be reflected. The applicant is proposing a distribution center for the post office, which is an industrial use because there's no public-facing interaction there. It would be meant for drivers, mail carriers to pick up and then leave from that spot. So that is an industrial use by our zoning code. I will leave it at that for now, and then we'll dive into some more specifics after when we talk about our zoning.
Okay. All right, so now with this public hearing, I have a couple names on here. I'm pre-apologizing. Darwin Swilly.
That's me.
If you can come state the name and address at the podium.
I'm representing 12 LLC, part owner of that land that we're talking about. And I just said one thing, I don't know, our chairman here are going to go over it a little bit more in detail, but about 25 years ago, what they're proposing, that's the way it was. It had residential along Guns and light industrial in the front there. But then they changed it because they thought other things were going to happen, but it never did. So that, I just wanted to bring that up. That's it. Thanks for
All right,
having me.
thank you. And then we also have Randy Swilly.
Yeah,
Am I pronouncing that right? Is it correct?
Yeah. Darwin's brother.
All right.
I guess I just want to say that this property has been in our family for over 100 years. And one of the homes is probably 100 years old, the other one at least 75. And we've had it for sale, and it's been commercial for over 40 years. But we've had it for sale for 40 years, and this is the first time we actually had some people come forward to spend millions of dollars on this property. We've lowered the price, that's why we sold the 2 homes on there, so we could lower the price of the land. But I can see the people that have bought the homes, they're very old, and there's a lot of junk behind them and everything. This is gonna beautify the area, completely, and it's gonna look really impressive. As far as zoning and all, how that all goes, I don't know, but it's been commercial for a long, long time. And our prices were high, and he kept coming down, down, down. And now we have someone that's willing to take a chance, and they're gonna be investing a lot more money than, we're gonna get out of the land. But I hope you look at it, and it's gonna look beautiful when it's done. Even the postal building's gonna look really nice. It's not gonna look like just a gray cement building or something. It's gonna look very nice, and got holding pond and whole ball of wax for it. So that's all I wanna say.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have anyone else on my list, so anyone else who'd like to speak on this item, just come state your name and address at the podium.
I'll run through the whole spiel. Steve Beta with Beerbecker, working for the Darwin and Randy, and then for RE Commercial. As the guys mentioned, this site's been here forever. They had it forever. They had it for sale forever. They haven't been able to do anything with it. The biggest problem that they have with it is access. As I mentioned, you've got it right in, right out only, and otherwise you have to come all the way around the backside Guns Road to access the site. So when RE Commercial, Mark approached me and talked about possibly doing the post office there, it seemed like a good fit because it isn't as industrial as an industrial that you would visualize a light industrial would be. They do come in and out of there with trucks. They deliver mail. I don't know if they sort the mail, but they redistribute it and it heads out for delivery. But when we looked at it a little bit closer, you have a bar right next door to the north. That's been there forever, as far as I know, well over 30 years, maybe 40 years. And then right to the south of it is Walmart's shipping and receiving, their loading docks, their semis and everything like that. So it seems to fit with that location, that between those two things, what else do you really put there? I realize we're asking for two types of zoning, but when we looked at it, the post office really only needs a small amount of land really to do what they want to do. And then it's like, okay, what do we do with the back part of this thing? It's a pretty decent sized parcel, but it has challenges too, because if we look at the commercial side of it, it's too big to do a strip mall in the front. The access isn't very good, and then we'd have to bring people in through the rear. And then, okay, what do we do with the back part of it? Okay, there's only a few things you can do. It's not gonna be commercial in the back along Guns Road. We know that. So I said, well, maybe we should look at doing some multifamily that would somewhat fit in there. You do have a City of Green Bay school system. They have a distribution center right across the street to the west across Guns Road. So they have shipping and receiving, and they do those things there, but multifamily doesn't tend to usually bother that type of thing. So they did secure the two homes there as well in the corner as part of this project. They went to those two owners. They are able to purchase those two to make, if you pull up the site plan again, they're able to make the site be what we're showing in the site plan. So yeah, we have two larger multifamily buildings in there with parking, garages, and everything that we do. Some of the units have detached parking and attached parking in the multifamily. But then, as you can see, the site for the post office access all the way around. They do back up a truck to the one end, which would face Walmart, and they would load and unload out that side of the building. That new tenant for the Postal Service, they would sign a 15-year lease, so we know it would be a postal and shipping receiver for at least 15 years, and then they have the ability to sign additional 10-year terms beyond that. Typically, the post offices don't move around a whole lot, so we're pretty optimistic that would probably happen. With that being said, the building would be an all masonry building, one story, so it would look nice. It would fit in with the multifamily that we're looking at doing there. The other challenge that we have with the site, given the value of the commercial, again, no one wants to pay what it's worth, but on the flip side, it's not so valuable that really it should be all multifamily, because that's on the lower price point as far as commercial versus multifamily. It's quite a bit different as far as from a price point. So to have a mixed use on the site, even though it's light industrial and multifamily, at least that makes it work for the sellers, and it works for the buyers as well. They can at least divest themselves to the entire site, find the buyer, and get the site moved from that standpoint. I'm here with Mark Beers, also from RE Commercial, so I don't know if you want to add anything or missed anything, Mark? but I think I'm pretty-
Yeah, no, I, just a couple comments. Mark Veras from RE Commercial. One thing I just wanted to add is the post office, so we need the rezoning to light industrial. If this were a post office with customers, it's my understanding that it would be approved. The building's gonna look exactly the same almost. They might be a little bit of a different entrance, but the style, the masonry, the windows, and things like that will look really close. So it won't be that, but again, if it allowed for customers, we wouldn't be having this meeting, is my understanding, other than for the multifamily. But the post office, so they were looking at a lot of different sites. So while it's commercial, why don't they just go somewhere else and do this? There are not a lot of sites. They've vetted several sites. I think there was some light industrial nearby that is now zoned commercial, zoned multifamily, or residential at least. And so this is the area they wanted to be, the radius, so they're out of options. Well, maybe they find something, but this was their number one, and not like they can just go to a bunch of different sites. So this was chosen specifically by the U.S. Postal Service. And that's about all I have.
Go ahead.
Bill Morgan, Alderman District 3, which this is part of. So far, the only communication I've had with anybody is I received a letter last week from the Village of Bellevue's Community Development Director saying he's opposed to this. I've not had anyone else in the neighborhood or anyone else in my district express any concerns about this. Now, talking as Bill Morgan, who built his house about 8 blocks from here 42 years ago, I've been sitting looking at this land because I'm a frequent flyer at Walmart thinking, why hasn't anything been done here? And when I heard these gentlemen were thinking about it, I actually went to their business and got to see what their plans were and stuff. And it excites me to see something finally going to happen there. For one thing, and I'm going to address this for 3, 4, 5, and 6, so I'm not repetitive on all this stuff. I'll say it one time tonight. So as Bill Morgan, the neighbor of this property, I'm happy to see this, but I'm also happy for the city that they're thinking about some more housing. Because, we've got the Big JBS project, that's going to be a couple blocks downhill from this, but we always need more. And as I've said in other things, rentals trickle down. If somebody can find a place that they like, that they can afford, they may leave one that somebody else can. So the more, the merrier, I think, once we can build more properties. The other part is having business in front of there. This, I believe they were hoping that they might keep it down a little bit, but this could bring another $28,000, maybe $30,000 in tax revenue to the city of Green Bay, which I think is fine. And when I drive down this street on my trips to Walmart weekly, I see other things there. I've got pictures. I just took this picture in between my protection policy. This is what's directly across the street. We have a consignment field for motorhomes and trailers. This is going to be a beautiful building that'll bring money to the city, and it might add jobs, which is nice too. Now, also across from Walmart, we have storage facilities for people to rent and stuff like that. So I think if we can get something like this project in there, it's going to be a plus for the city. And I, as a neighbor, will be real happy to see that land finally get used. Hopefully that mound of dirt that's grass covered now with a billboard will be gone. So, thank you.
All right, is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Is there anyone else who'd wish to speak on this item? Is there anyone else who'd wish to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 4. Consideration with possible action on a request to amend the Smart Growth 2022 Comprehensive Plan for 1135 Guns Road, 1141 Guns Road, and the 1100 block of Guns Road from future low-density residential land use to medium-high-density residential and light industrial land uses, submitted by Todd DeVillers of TMD Properties on behalf of 12 LLC, Nelson Yair Malagar, and Keith Schneider, property owners.
Thank you, Chair. This is kind of where the big decision needs to be made, because if the comprehensive plan amendments don't go through, then we technically are not supposed to do the rezonings because they need to match our comprehensive plan. So with everything that we've heard and heard from the applicants as well, we know that this has been vacant for a long time, and we know that something needs to happen here, and we agree. However, the industrial zoning is a little bit scary of a zoning district to be putting in our commercial core district. So not only is Main Street kind of synonymous with being our commercial district, but also in our update to our comprehensive plan that's anticipated to be done summer 2025. That calls this area out as our commercial core district, and then this parcel specifically to keep that commercial zoning on the frontage. We just think it's important to keep that as contiguous, making sure that that is continually a commercial zone for people, so it's just kind of the identifier for that area. Again, this gets confusing, because when we're looking at CUPs, we're looking at PUDs, we look at the site plan, we look at the business operations, but with the rezoning, it's anything that's in that zoning district. So there are a lot of things that happen in light industrial that we likely don't want to happen on Main Street in general, but in particular here, because there are some single-family residences nearby, there are quite a few apartment complexes. We are supportive of the medium high-density residential and the R3 zoning for that portion, the parcel A of this. So thinking that this will be next to multifamily, we want to be really intentional about the zoning district that goes next to it. Within light industrial, there are many uses that we don't find would be appropriate, and we can't, with a rezoning, condition it on this particular use, this particular applicant. It just, the zoning is the zoning is the zoning. So other things that can go into the light industrial zoning district are agricultural uses, self-service storage, material recovery facility, limited production and processing, adult entertainment as a conditional use, and then many automobile-related uses that aren't normally found in the C1 district would be allowed in the light industrial with a CUP. So while staff holds that maybe just this postal distribution center would be a fine use, our zoning code doesn't allow for that distinction, because that is not a CUP within our conditional districts. It's not a CUP within a different district. It's allowed within our industrial uses because distribution is considered an industrial use. So that's where this gets a little sticky, because if you're rezoning the property, we have to think about all the things that could go there, because even if this is a contract for 15 years, what about 15 in a day? This could turn into any of those things. So I know that the applicant, we spoke last week, they're willing to find any sort of creative legal loophole to be like, okay, but it's going to be this. But there's not much that we as a city can do to tie them to that when it's just a rezoning. So with that, we are recommending the approval for the multifamily piece of this puzzle. We are recommending denial for the light industrial piece of the puzzle. I believe that there could be some creative zoning solutions to get to a yes, but those would include having us do a text amendment to our code to allow for a United States Postal Service distribution center to be allowed within one of our commercial districts, so that way we wouldn't be stuck with that light industrial zoning over that piece of property. However, we haven't come up with a really clear path at this point, but staff is pretty adamant that light industrial does not belong on Main Street and certainly does not belong near residential uses. So the recommendation right now is for the approval of the multifamily, denial of industrial.
Okay.
Can you restate again why a conditional use is not available?
It's just not listed in our code, because there's not, the land use that this falls under is a distribution or warehousing center. There is nothing more specific that's
commercial.
That's not allowed in any of our commercial districts or
It's
business
not
park
at
or
all.
anything. It's only allowed
So
within
we
our
want to keep it
industrial.
in commercial, but it's not allowed, and we can't do a PUD or a CUP, we can't do some kind of an overlay to make it okay.
A PUD would be available, but likely does not qualify based, because we have like 7 standards that we use to
Right.
create a PUD. This is just to kind of like circumvent our own zoning code, which is not how you're supposed to use a PUD. So I do think that if there is a clean path forward, it would have to be through some sort of a text amendment process where we have to look at maybe breaking out what the differences are between a distribution center for industrial uses and maybe
Versus,
one that's something like this.
It's a lighter use.
Yes, but typically zoning codes they don't dig that deep. They don't get that specific on those types of uses because.
And there's no variance that we can go in and be like, well, it's just, okay.
No, they would require a text amendment to either allow it into one of our commercial districts or having to create a new land use designation that's a little bit more specific. But either way, it's not an exercise that happens tonight with the rezoning. The rezoning would just allow it to be light industrial.
Okay. So with these items, with 4 and 6, there's like 2 things in there in each item then, kind of?
Yes.
Because, I mean, the first one's the part of the comprehensive plan. and then
Yes, so for the
rezone.
comprehensive plan,
Right.
we are recommending approval for the Lot A, medium to high density residential, denial of the Lot B.
And you guys
light
are still
industrial.
working on trying to figure something out?
I think it will depend. I mean, there might be a creative solution from the private side too. I mean, there are a lot of ways that people tie each other to doing certain things when they acquire land, but we as a city cannot get involved in that. So we as a partner cannot force that with the rezoning. Rezoning laws are very clear on what is allowed once a property has that zoning.
Right, and to add to that, it's almost disingenuous to even show a site plan whatsoever, because once the zoning is changed, they don't have to do anything that's
They
on
don't
the
have
plan.
to do
If they,
anything.
if it
That's
fell
true.
through or they
Right,
didn't
no,
want to.
right.
I have faith that they would.
Absolutely.
Right.
However,
I like the idea.
and again, so I think Alder Morgan mentioned across the street is a storage yard, grandfathered use, not permitted in commercial district. It can remain as long as it stays.
If
This
it's
would
knocked
now
down.
allow another, that type of use, or storage units, or again, you can't dictate exactly what goes on there. You can only allow what's in that district, as Stephanie had said. So oftentimes in sort of these transitional commercial areas, you gotta wait. Things become grandfathered or what's called legal non-conforming. So you can remain there, operate forever. When you close, you can't reestablish that type of industrial
Right.
use in this scenario. So I'll just throw that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then additionally, we did get, as Alder Morgan mentioned, the message from the Village of Bellevue.
I saw, yeah.
So that was emailed all to you last week, noting that they are not interested in having that industrial piece because they, again, have that commercial idea for their portion of Main Street as well. I did get a call of support from one of the neighbors who owns one of the houses, which I assume because they applied, so that's good. And then we also had another call from a different neighbor about traffic concerns with multifamily. So I, went through that step with them, but wanted to bring that to your attention as well.
Okay.
And to kind of give you an example, if you remember on the corner of Manitowoc and Main for a long time was sort of these quasi-random uses right across the street here. Over time, that ended up being acquired as a Circle K now and became a gas station. Pardon?
Take care, Spencer.
Right, so, I mean, that is typically what you'll find with a non-conforming use. Over time, it'll convert over to a use that's more acceptable for that corridor. But again, this has been for sale for a long time. I don't know the market conditions of why it got sold. Could have been pricing, it could have been, I don't know.
Okay. So we understand definitely where the applicant's coming from, and we have faith that they would follow through, but
15
zoning
years
law
in a
really
day.
prohibits a lot of what we can control on that.
Could I ask one more question?
As far as close to this point. The floor is closed at this point.
But can't the applicant talk if the floor is closed? No.
What's the recommendation?
Oh, sorry. Usually we jump to that, now I
Right,
forgot to bring it
right.
up.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to open the floor to hear from the applicant.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rinsky, second by Alder Hutchinson. All those in favor?
Um, So my question is, obviously I've talked to Stephanie and John. I don't know if I talked to David about this one, but I talked to a lot of them about how to get this possibly done for this specific use, and we didn't come up with anything, so we thought, okay, let's just submit it and try to work through this and possibly get this use, get this done. So my question would be if there's really a chance or not, or do you feel, Stephanie, there's a chance to amend some text in the zoning code to do it or not, or do you think it's just a no way in hell kind of a
I
situation?
think it depends what planner you ask. I'm a little optimistic, so.
I'm asking you. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's a bad use, to me, or it didn't seem like even to you, it just there wasn't a way for you guys to help us get it done. That was the problem that we seem to be, or the
Yes.
quandary that we've had.
I do hold that of the industrial uses, this is a good one. However, Main Street's still commercial. There should be
Yeah,
something that is
understood.
public interfacing that allows people to participate in commerce. That's kind of what the
Sure.
commercial areas are for. This would just be another thing, it'll be a pretty building, but you'll drive right by it. There'll be no interaction with the public, and that's what
Right.
the commercial districts are kind of intended for.
Yeah.
So while I'm sure it'll be nice, and I'm sure it will be a postal distribution center, it still isn't commercial.
I feel like that Main Street though, with the right in, right out, and you can't get it, like, I don't feel like that's conducive to actual business. I've owned small business
That's
for
why
a
it
while, I
hasn't-
would never, right.
nothing's been built.
Right, I'm sure that's probably part of it,
So-
because it's commercial, and who's gonna want just to right in, right out, and they gotta access it another way. If they're coming from the other side of traffic, they gotta go all the way around it, so I like this idea, but yeah,
I would ask then that you possibly table it, and let us talk with Stephanie a little more and see if there's some loophole or some way we can change some text before we just outright deny, I would say. Because with the multifamily, they kind of got to go together. It's either one or the other. So we'd rather have both zonings or neither at this point. But if you're okay tabling it, I'd rather table it for a little bit, try and work with Stephanie on the use, unless you guys make the decision that that's not going to happen.
Is there any
Or
way
approve
to
it.
entice the federal government to have a public use for that postal area? I feel like every time I go to the post office, it's busy downtown or whatever. I mean, is there
Right.
any way for them to activate that in any way?
What's your sway with the
Yeah.
federal doors?
My dad used to work there.
Yeah.
I
mean, if it's
don't know,
not always-
this is what, they're specific in their use. This is the use they want it for. They haven't indicated that it was going to be a public in and out type of a thing.
Okay, I mean, I'm just thinking if it's hard to find a site, this is a great site, and would they be willing to look at that? I don't know. If anyone's
Stamp
asked.
vending machine.
Yeah.
Floor's open.
Excuse me, hi, this is Todd DeVillers.
Okay, sorry, Mr., I'm sorry.
One at a time.
Hold on, just, I'm sorry, who's calling in?
This is Todd DeVillers, the applicant. Sorry, I wasn't able to join you today, but I've been listening on Zoom. And can I speak real quick?
Yeah, if you could just state your address for the record, please, and yes, go ahead.
401 St. Mary's Boulevard, Green Bay, Todd DeVillers. I appreciate your time today to discuss this option, and I think, I agree with Steve, if, there's a way that we can massage this to get everyone on board, that if there's a possibility of doing that, we'd like to do that. I know the zoning department, planning department is concerned that once you have an industrial zone site, it opens up Pandora's box to a lot of other things. But, right now, in your light industrial, zoning, you've got 32 uses. In commercial zoning, you've got 44 uses. Of those, you've got 12 uses in commercial that are permitted in the industrial. And, and right now, of the permitted uses, there's probably about 7 of them that, I could see might be a possibility in the future that, could be a concern, but, their production, research, light industrial is a very, broad topic, but self-storage, wholesale distribution, package delivery is what we are. But, at the end of the day, the cost of this facility is going to be well over $2 million. Even 15 years from now, it's going to be well over $2 million, and no one's going to pay $1 million an acre for an industrial site. I don't hope that's the case in 15 years from now, but I just, the cost of this site, something else will happen with it if for some reason the Postal Service, leaves after their lease term. So I guess I wanted to just point out that if you really break down the zoning codes as to, what are your concerns, it's really only 7 things that, could be a possibility, and those things, could fit in that zoning district where, like say production and processing. If you got Cerrugi's Candies to make candies, they would have to, come and get a rezoning process to do processing in there. So you protect yourself because of the cost of this property is going to be so expensive for just 2 acres of land and with building setbacks. It's I just don't see, the market, putting a heavy industrial use there at the cost. So I just wanted to throw that out to, kind of, pacify the planning department that if you really look at what your concerns are, there are just a very few items that I think, you probably could use in a commercial setting, even though they're industrial uses.
Okay, thank you
But
very
thank you very much for your
Thank
time
you.
today.
One other thing, that property is the border of the last piece of Green Bay. So, I mean, if you're gonna change it, it ain't that much of doing anything, because going to Bellevue, it's something different, I just want to bring that to attention too. I think that's a very important thing.
Thank you.
And it seems like the only thing happening in the city of Green Bay is that industrial land is being zoned to residential. And so across the street, we've had probably 40 acres rezoned recently. And if that would have been industrial, you would have had an industrial site there for the post office to go after. But I think you have limited industrial options. I know you have the I-43 business park, but logistically, everything on this northeast side down by Guns Road, Lime Kiln, a lot of your industrial ground has been rezoned, and there is no more industrial zoning. So, just my 2 cents. But thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Just want to say one more thing. This land did have an in and out access off of Main Street. It was taken away when Walmart came in. So that really kind of crippled our opportunities to sell for commercial. This is an absolutely beautiful fit, and I don't think you should be making decisions based on fear. It doesn't sound like anything is going to be bad about this plan. It's just absolutely beautiful. If there's some way they can guarantee it or come up with something, that'd be great. But I think it's just an absolute beautification of this property. That's it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Move the close of court.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Daniel, second by Commissioner Fullwilder. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
What's the process for a text amendment?
Well, we're gonna have one later. Same comes here, goes to city council.
Timing, give or take?
6 weeks, 8 weeks, depending on when you apply.
8 to 12. I think the only comment that I'm going to make with doing text amendments on the fly, and everybody, generally when anybody wants to do something that a code doesn't allow, if that becomes common practice of the city, that's going to be requested every time.
Right.
So make sure you just think about that.
Yeah, I think it really
Because
comes
you will
down
have just a
to,
fluid code.
yeah, I mean, planning staff, we hold wholeheartedly that no industrial uses should be along our Main Street corridor. If you all are feeling like, yeah, but this one's different, that might be a good reason to hold it. But if you think that there should be something that's public facing along the Main Street corridor, a text amendment won't change that. So.
Because they're never going to get access back again, because then I do feel like, well, this one's different.
But is it different from the use or
retail-
different from the
Well,
location?
no,
Because those are very different things too.
Right, no, I'm just thinking about, like, no retail is going to want to go there. If they don't have full access from both sides, both east and west traveling on Main Street to be able to access their driveway. It's only people who are coming east that are going to be able to turn in and out of that Am I heading from east?
I would argue that retail could go in there, but more of your service-type businesses and your office-type businesses
Okay.
could use guns to access to
I
get
see.
back out.
Yeah, there are
Again,
plenty of-
retail's only
Not
a
regular
small-
retail, I'm thinking regular.
Small
right.
portion of the economy.
There are a lot of challenging access sites within the city and other cities that survive just fine. You know, if you want what you want, you're gonna go find it. So I think that's why we, as planning staff, have held over 30 years now that it's a commercial corridor for a reason, regardless of access. So if your thoughts are site-specific, that is very different than if you're thinking, oh, this industrial thing isn't really industrial to me, this is a commercial use. That's when a text amendment would be most appropriate, if you think that this designation of land use is wrong. If you think, well, because this parcel has this X, Y, and Z, that's different, then we still hold that industrial is inappropriate.
And we would have to look at a text amendment, what is an appropriate distribution center, and what qualifications are going to hit that, and it may not match what the post office wants to do at the end of the day. You know, loading docks, trucks facing Main Street, that kind of thing, is that, I don't know. We haven't done the research on that
Yeah.
yet, so.
I mean, I'm inclined to go with your recommendation, but I do feel like this is a little bit different, and it actually might work for the space, but I'm personally not willing to give up lighted industrial, or I'm not willing to give up commercial.
Neither.
Yeah, and you guys
Sorry
are.
to be as a mess.
Right, I know. But I do feel like this is different. I wish that we could make it work, but at the same time, I'm not willing to, I personally am not willing to go from commercial to light industrial.
So can I ask a point of order? What's being changed? Which zone would be changed?
This is comprehensive.
This is the comprehensive future land use plan, so that would
I know
completely
that.
change it. The zoning would be, they're requesting full change on the site. Staff is supporting the multifamily on guns, but not the change from commercial to industrial.
I know, but if we hold this for a text change, what text would change? Which zone would change?
We would have to allow the distribution into the commercial districts.
Within our C1
Within
district.
a commercial district. Oh, I see. So it would be commercial, but we'd allow this type of distribution center in there.
Can we limit the size of the distribution center in it?
I'm sure you could.
Like, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how we can make it, like, because I don't want to, we want commercial, but how can we make it work?
Yeah, I mean, we would have to research and see what's out there and what, talk to the traffic engineer, what are the impacts of trucks coming in and out. I mean, again, this use may be certain times of the day, but if it switches over, I mean, a distribution center is a distribution center.
Right,
So you
right.
could be 24 hours a day and you can have as many trucks as you like. I mean, but again, we would have to research that. We have not, so I don't know the differentiation in, distribution and uses. It's an generally, it's an
Right.
industrial use.
Yeah, I understand, we don't want to set precedent necessarily. On the other flip side of that, this has been decades sitting there. We have a chance to do something that benefits everybody. And I hate for the fact that it's a technical thing, and it may take us time to look at it to forestall that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe 20, 40 hours of research will give us a developed piece of land, and maybe it's what we want for commercial, I don't know, until you look at it. So I'm in favor of opening this up to see if we can do a text change myself.
Or the option is you can recommend approval of it here and have faith that the post office is going to do what they're going to do.
Well, we could do that, but it sounds like there's a lot of hesitancy to do that. I mean,
There is.
I see a lot less. I mean, we would be putting in text that every commercial zone would be allowed that, right?
Correct.
Or
With the
we
conditional
just,
use, yeah.
Oh, with the conditional.
That's what I'm
use.
assuming, we wouldn't just add this
Oh,
as an
okay,
approved.
that's what I like, okay.
Right,
I was
and we would
thinking you
have
guys
to-
were completely changing the commercial zoning text, you're just talking about just as one. Okay.
I mean,
That's-
that's my inclination.
I like-
We wouldn't know until we get into it. And
Right.
Maybe every other community is like, yeah, of course we put these in our commercial. I doubt that, but.
Well, is this something that we can really vote on right now, or is this something that we need to
Not the text,
table?
not the text amendment.
Right, so is this something, because I don't think we're gonna all be in favor,
Well,
that we should, it
I
sounded
mean,
like
you
the
can
applicant was okay
hold
with
it and
tabling
ask
it.
staff to work with the developers to try
I
to
mean, I
figure
feel like
out
you
a
guys
way.
have probably done that already. For us to
Not
ask
just
you to do it
deed.
again, okay.
We initially had some conversations about deed restrictions or the agreements that they are going to enter into together, because again, the city can't, when it's rezoning, we can't really be a party to some of those things. It's not like we're gonna get into a contract agreement with them.
Right.
To hold their feet to the fire. So we just would have to dig a little bit deeper to make sure that it's something that we're like wanting to go into. But the conversation just happened last week about, okay, but how do we promise you guys this? Well, you can't really with zoning. So
Right.
the conversation has not been completely vetted for sure. But also it really is the temperature. If you guys are feeling, yeah, maybe it might be worth the pause. If you're still feeling like even a distribution center, even if it's the prettiest Taj Mahal of a distribution center, doesn't belong here, then it's still a no. It's still the industrial doesn't belong here vote. So those are, I mean, there are obviously a lot of different routes that you can take, but if you're feeling like pump the brakes, maybe this does fit here, there's a path for that. If you have the gut instinct of, no, I don't think this belongs here either way, then that's a no. Or, yeah, Steph is wrong, and that's yes.
Never. I don't know.
Can I ask a question?
The floor is closed at this time.
Okay.
I guess,
You want to simmer on a second? May I provide a different perspective? How about some of these scarier uses within the light industrial become conditional uses? If you're talking about text amendments,
Oh.
because reading through most of what is permitted within light industrial is a lot of things that are customer-facing services. You're talking about dog groomers, you're talking about offices are allowed in their artist studios, restaurants, not restaurants, catering services, printing, like these are a lot of things that you are, if you're gonna use the argument that it needs to be commercial, commerce-facing, there's plenty of things within light industrial that are that.
Those are also in the commercial district as well. The light industrial, they're seated, so the light industrial is going to have the commercial uses
plus additional.
and the industrial uses.
Oh.
So if you don't want the industrial uses, but you want the commercial, zone it commercial.
Just a
Not
reminder how
industrial, and remove the
CUPs,
industrial uses.
like the power of the CUP in Wisconsin
Yeah.
is strong.
In CUPs, you would have to put the conditions in the CUP, so whatever those would be. So a good example is in our code right now, we don't allow, in most districts, commercial districts, your service doors or the dock doors to face the street.
Right.
They have to face the back or the side. Industrial, you can face the street because it's industrial. So those are little tweaks that if we're gonna change the zoning code, a text amendment, which again, you're getting into an area that's not 10 hours, it's 40 hours, 60 hours, because they ripple down amongst themselves. But, I mean, we can look at it. It just may take a little longer.
And a lot of the things that are listed as conditional, I mean, we went through in 18 and updated these to really make sure that we had solid grounds to deny a CUP if we needed to, because they updated that, what is it? What was that called?
2017, it was the...
Act 67?
Act
Got it.
67. Look at you with your notes down. So we would have to have very evidentiary reasons to deny something if it was a CUP.
Right. No feelings.
Like, we don't need to turn one of our industrial districts into a commercial district. We already have 3 of those.
Yeah.
They have a variety of uses for a reason, because they're supposed to be, you know, allowing different things there, so. Zoning's pretty tricky.
Right, and there is...
For how boring it is.
I know the applicant had said there's no industrial zoning in the city except the business park. There's a lot of industrial zoning in the city. There may not be at this exact location. And generally, what you'll find with developments is they'll tweak their plans to match the zoning. So again, as Cheryl had mentioned earlier, if they put a service station, it would now be permitted use because it would be interactive, it would be a post office, not a distribution center, you know. But if they don't want to do that, it's industrial. It's like, you know, you can have a production and processing that makes widgets as a factory, or you can have a brewery with a brew pub and a small brew station behind it. They're different uses.
Interesting.
You know, but I mean, we could look at a text amendment, we could look at, I don't know if this would meet the criteria for plan development.
I don't think
I
so.
don't think it does.
So them having a small office in the front of the post office for customers would
It would, Dick, it's
negate
limited
this?
to the size, yeah. I would have to dig into the.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
It's a certain percentage
Well,
should be distribution and
I
the
mean,
other has to
I
be.
don't want to count on that, though.
Right, no, I'm inclined to go with their recommendation, and I guess I think it sounds like the applicant would prefer it being tabled, so you guys could work a little bit deeper, because I don't think we've got all the answers right now. Because I'm gonna say, no.
Well, and I don't,
I'm
if,
gonna vote as recommended by staff,
And
which
if you-
is.
And
I wouldn't.
Oh, okay.
and if.
But
you-
as,
All right,
that's
all right, well, then we can vote. I mean,
we don't need to
We
vote.
can have a motion, I
And
mean, we
if
can do
you
that
choose to
too.
hold it, we can, if there's
think
not a
tabling
super
is the
time
best thing
frame,
to do.
you could hold it, we could work again with them
Yeah.
and come back again on.
I mean, I just don't
the end of the
wanna,
month.
yeah, I mean.
Because maybe we could also get an answer from the post office on why they don't want to have a customer facing. Like maybe there is more to it than we know about. They just came to them, this is the proposal, that's all we have right now.
Interesting,
The
okay.
application did not have a lot of detail on the operations of the post office either.
Okay.
The site plan's pretty rudimentary. We don't have building elevations.
Right.
Because it
Well,
was
and it's not a site
rezoning.
plan, this is a comprehensive plan and then a rezoning, so
Yeah,
it's.
so it's not
Right.
supposed to have all those
Right,
details.
no, right.
Would 60 days be enough time to hold this item,
Or just till next meeting.
or until next meeting?
I mean, I guess we can ask the applicant that.
Maybe,
I was wondering what staff would,
Well, I guess you guys gotta do the research, so.
yeah, and we have a little event happening this month. That's
Oh,
gonna take a week.
just a little thing,
Just a
huh?
little bit. I mean, you don't have to table it to a certain date, we can just bring it back when it's available, if you want to.
Oh, that would be easiest for the applicant, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
when available.
Because we won't have to repost it, like public hearing notices won't be in effect then, so,
Okay.
as long as we hold the public hearing for the next item as well.
I'm gonna,
so I would make a motion to table the item and direct staff to work with the developer on the zoning.
No. We want them to research the text amendment. This should be separate of the developer, in my opinion.
Okay.
Does the city want to include certain warehouse and distribution uses within the C1 district? I don't want it to be tailored to the specific petition. It should be a policy of how we want to handle this as a city.
And we can look at that definition. I mean, right now, the definition for distribution is means establishing storage, movement, sale of merchandise and bulk goods, mail order, catalog sales, importing, exporting, wholesale of retail goods received by an establishment not for sale on the premises. So it's a Amazon warehouse. Maybe not an Amazon warehouse, but that concept.
right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to co-opt it. I just
No,
wanted to
no,
make
it's
it,
fine.
I wanted to make it clear that the direction we're requesting to go is something that can be applied, not just here, but for,
Other,
Other, yeah.
it may not be the last time this comes up. But it's your motion.
I'm good with that motion.
okay.
That's what I meant.
Okay,
So that's a motion to hold, so staff can look at, and look at a text amendment.
Text amendment specific. to
regarding to
C1.
the
More
distribution.
distribution, C1.
Yeah.
Probably with the size, or however you guys want to.
It would, yeah, I guess it'd depend on the use probably of the distribution, like, you know, paper distribution is a little bit different, mail, you know, than.
Is staff comfortable, or do you need further direction?
Nope, I think that's good.
Okay, so got a motion
Second.
and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All right, hearing none, then we've got a motion by Commissioner Vinsky, second by Alder Hutchinson to table while staff looks at amendments, text amendments regarding the word that just flew out of my head.
Distribution.
Distribution, thank you.
C1.
All right, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so then that's not going to move forward, then it's just tabled?
Yes.
We're tabling, okay.
Table indefinitely.
All right, so now we're going on to the public hearing for item number 5. And this public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Gazette. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items, and we invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, and whether you favor, oppose, or providing information. We ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commissioner to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we will now open the public hearing on item number 5. Public hearing on a request to rezone 1135 Guns Road, 1141 Guns Road, and the 1100 block of Guns Road from general commercial to light industrial and varied density residential, submitted by Todd DeVillers of TMD Properties on behalf of 12 LLC, Nelson Year Melgar, and Keith Schneider, property owners.
Thank you, Chair. Same spiel, probably same results. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the tool to enforce the future land.
All right. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Steve Vita, 400 Security Boulevard, with your Becker. Just my comments from the previous item are the same.
Thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
As long as I can have the floor.
Can I ask one question, please?
Sure, Steve?
Go ahead. Well, I mean, this is the public hearing, so you can state something, but we're not answering anything at this point.
Well, my question is, does this use change if the post office puts a self-service stamp operation in this location?
No.
That can constitute
I just said
retail
there are
then?
no answering questions. There are no answering questions. This is the public hearing. You can ask your questions. They will be answered during the actionable item.
Got it.
Sorry.
One more comment then from me. I assume the next item, I just request that the next item be tabled the same as we did the first.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 6, consideration with possible action on a request to rezone 1135 Guns Road, 1141 Guns Road, and the 1100 block of Guns Road from general commercial to light industrial and varied density residential, submitted by Todd DeVillers of TMD Properties on behalf of 12 LLC, Nelson Year Melgar, and Keith Schneider, property owners.
Thank you, Chair. Dave, would you like to answer now?
No, it would have to be a certain percentage, would have to be service or retail, and then another percentage could be storage distribution. So just like a store can have a storeroom, but they have to have a store. You couldn't have a vending machine out front and call a warehouse a store. If that's what you're getting at.
Thank you.
So yes, we will go with the applicant and recommend tabling this one as well.
Move to table. Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Miller and a second by Commissioner Daniels. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item number 7, which is a public hearing. And this public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Gazette. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items, and we invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, and whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we will now open the public hearing on item number 7. Public hearing on a request for a conditional use permit to allow a multiple message sign at the 2400 block of West Mason Street, submitted by Trevor Bowman of Lamar Central Outdoor LLC, applicant and easement holder, GB Real Estate Investments LLC, property owner.
Thank you, Chair. So the property looking at here is between Hinkle and Hobart on the West Mason frontage road. Property itself, this is similar to the request that was done about 2 months ago over at Irwin and 43. So if you are an applicant looking to have a digital billboard, there are some specs you have to get to allow for a digital billboard to happen, and if you get that, it goes through the CUP process. So the district itself is commercial, surrounded by commercial throughout the area. This is the existing sign that we're looking at. Applicant's looking to take off these two faces and put on a digital billboard over on that billboard itself. They're looking to move it approximately 35 feet or so back towards the intersection. So when we're looking at this, we're going, okay, are we having any issues with being too close to an intersection? In the similar situation back over on Irwin. We're looking to move it right now, would be still further than 200 feet from the intersection. That's the key. If you are 200 feet or greater from an intersection, you can have a digital billboard that goes up to 650 square feet. And so the applicants come forth with a similar 644 square foot plan to move the billboard and put on a face over on this eastbound traffic on the western part of the property. I'm going to note this was not as part of your packet itself. In your packet, you saw some ideas of where a billboard could go. This gives a better representation to a potential site plan for reinvestment back into the area. As you can see here, the Oasis building, the billboard goes over it. So in the future, to expect to see some redevelopment of the area, and where you see that yellow base and green signage is where it looks to be that the sign would move. So we're reviewing that as far as what does it mean for signage placement within a property. And so when it comes to recommendations, I'll get into a bit more of the nitty-gritty on that. But we do have some folks here who may want to talk regarding that.
All right. All right, now with public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who'd like to speak on this item. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 8, consideration with possible action on the request for a conditional use permit to allow a multiple message sign at the 2400 block of West Mason Street, submitted by Trevor Bowman of Lamar Central Outdoor LLC, applicant and easement holder, GB Real Estate Investments LLC, property owner.
Thank you, Chair. So staff is recommending approval of the digital billboard. I'll give some background as far as what that meant. Going back to things that we're considering, this is within 200 feet of an intersection. When looking at where the exact placement of this billboard is, as long as they stick within being 200 feet from the intersection, they can move it around, depending on how the site plan itself has some changes with egress to allow for redevelopment in the area. As far as getting points to allow for this to happen, this comes off of the other side face of a point system that happened back over on Turner Monroe, and so that's now been utilized to its full extent. And then DPW needs to have their typical boilerplate look at this for conditions. And so with this is a bit lengthy, but I know the first two are really the biggest issues of this. So a site plan and applicable permit applications are submitted to the Department of Community and Economic Development for review and approval. Said plan shall include a panel which does not exceed 650 square feet because they want to place it within 200 feet of the property. I want to note there's an existing sign here on that billboard that's smaller than 650 for a digital billboard that exists on the east side of this billboard, but it's less than 650, so it meets the same qualifications as far as being too close to an intersection. And so it will work out okay with it being a smaller billboard. Second part being, a site plan submitted which accounts for future redevelopment of the parcel, noting location of driveways, egress, and building locations. The billboard shall not impede vehicular or pedestrian access to the site. The billboard shall not be located directly over any new buildings or placed directly in front of any new buildings. We wouldn't want to see this again. That shouldn't have happened in the past, and we don't want to see it happen again. But we don't want to put specifics on that in case the applicants want to change around their site plans a little bit to make things work. The rest of this becomes more standard issue. The site permit application shall not be valid until DPW is approved by DPW or their designee. DPW shall be provided with means of to turn off a digital billboard in case of hazardous glare interference with visibility or effectiveness of a traffic signal or control or other traffic hazard caused by the sign. The owner of the sign shall maintain an up-to-date contact information with DPW. The contact info is provided 24 hours per day, 7 days per week, access to a person or persons that are available at all times to respond to any hazardous sign situation. And the proposed ordinance shall meet all requirements of Article 3 for off-premise advertising in the Green Bay zoning code. So staff recommends approval.
Okay.
This is the public hearing, right?
No, we're done with that. That was quick. That was that quick.
Motion to approve.
I saw that on his face. We were staring at each other. Second. All right. Any further discussion? Got a motion by Commissioner Vinsky, second by Commissioner Fullwilder. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Then that will go forward to City Council for April 15th. Then.
Correct.
Excellent. Moving on then to number 9, which is a public hearing.
Well, that's what will be coming.
I need to clean some water and bring some. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Gazette. The Planning Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, and whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information. We also ask you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearing, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Planning Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we'll now open the public hearing on item number 9. Public hearing on a request to amend section 44-469 Green Bay Municipal Code, modifying the limit on events and days of operation per calendar year for rummage sales, submitted by the City of Green Bay Community and Economic Development Department on behalf of Alderperson Profit District 7.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this one's relatively quick. So in November of last year, there was actually a council communication that went to Protection and Policy Committee. So it took a while to make its way down to planning, it's the zoning code, so it should be referred to.
Yeah, up to,
Right. Plan Commission, right on the 6th floor. So that, I just wanted to give that little explanation. So in the zoning code, there are temporary uses. Some require permits, some you can just do. Rummage sales are one you can just do, but they're limited to time and frequency, I guess, duration and frequency. Staff is unsure exactly why the code says 3 times a year, up to 9 days, 3 days, 3 events. When we did a little bit of research on rummage sales, typically those things were, the frequency was put in place to protect the neighborhood from traffic, from storage of goods outside, and it just tended to be a way that you started to gather things on your lot. However, when we did look at that, the 3 kind of matched the seasons for up north. So rummage sale in the spring, rummage sale in the summer, rummage sale in the fall. You don't have one in the winter, supposedly.
Right. Okay, right.
But really, that is an arbitrary number. Any community can kind of choose. We did check with our inspection division. They did say be very careful. You know, you're talking about, things like parking getting sucked up. Their biggest issue, however, is the accumulation of goods. It starts to become a retail situation in some people's homes. However, 3 to 4 times a year, 9 days to 12 days is really minor adjustment. So I'll leave it at that, so it's being requested.
Okay, all right, public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Hi, Alder Prophet, 1262 Cherry Street, so I brought forth the communication. I appreciate Mr. Buck's comments, he did a great job giving the synopsis, and I'll keep my comments brief. This just stemmed, I'm in my first year, a little past my first year, just trying to listen to what the neighbors are communicating with me, so this stemmed from a really lengthy conversation with a neighbor, and it felt like some tangible action could happen out of it, so that's why we're here. She did have kind of some inspection issues with her stuff, so I appreciate Mr. Buck bringing that concern up, because that was a concern with her property. However, she is an elderly woman, so she did express concern with only 3 days. She wanted a day on either side of her sale to sell on Friday and Saturday. She wanted the Thursday and Sunday to clean up her property, because just being a single woman who was elderly, it made it a little difficult. So that's where this 4 days per event stemmed from. And based on the staff report, hopefully we'll have a good shot at getting this passed and help her and hopefully alleviate. But we know it's a multifactorial with her particular property, but more rummage sales, the better. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward, and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 10. Consideration with possible action on a request to amend section, Oh, sorry, my bad. Let me take those off. Amend section 44-469, Green Bay Municipal Code, modifying the limit on events and days of operation per calendar year for rummage sales, submitted by the City of Green Bay Community and Economic Development Department on behalf of Alderperson Prophet, District 7.
And as I had mentioned before, so it's really the limitation on rummage sales is relatively arbitrary and a choice of the community itself, the legislative body of the community. Staff doesn't object at all to a minor increase, allowing 4 events a year at 4 days per event. But just keep in mind that it is, that's 4 out of 7 days a week.
Okay, so wait, so now it used to be 3 days, 3 times a year, so it was 9 days total, right?
Correct.
Why aren't we just doing 4 times 3? Because we're still 3 times a year.
That would be 12, right?
Right.
I believe the Alder's request was
Was
to
4 days.
go 4 days.
Okay.
For setup, take down, that type of thing.
Oh, so 4.
4
3 times a
events,
year.
4 days per event. 4 events a year, 4 days. Oh, I'm sorry, I marked it at 3. It should be, ignore that, it should be 16 days.
Okay, I was like, some of this math isn't.
Okay, so 16.
There you go, John, that works.
That math is not math.
No.
I'm not the only one.
I mean, honestly, I mean, I guess the houses that are really good at pay attention, I see houses that are doing more than 16 days every weekend for them.
Complaint based.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, 4, got it. Okay.
I mean, okay.
Motion to approve as recommended.
Second.
Who was it?
That was me.
Okay, all right. Motion by Commissioner Urbanski, second by Vice Chair Miller. Any further discussion? All right, go ahead with the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, and then April 15th, for the City Council. All right, what are we on to here? We got Director's Report.
Yeah, from the night, handed this out, our project tracker to insert that was in your packet. Georgia Pacific rezone, held until April 15th, as well as the Kosmowski development. That's multi-areas is held as well, coming back April 15th. So we'll be handling both of those at that time. Any other questions that you want, or anything going on?
I see there's something going on right across from Fire Station 1. There's been trucks.
We did see that.
There's trucks.
That's the site,
Oh,
yeah.
What's up with that?
I think they're getting closer to closing that out, probably.
Yeah, they've been remediating that site.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. It was some kind of
They probably- and I
remediation.
think they have to probably put one at some point. Maybe they're looking at that.
So.
Because there's cement under there. Like, I feel like there's
For
like
capping.
some slab or
Yeah.
something, yeah, so. Okay.
No developments.
No.
At least that we
No.
know of,
Trucks,
but
yeah,
it's just
okay, all right.
remediation.
All right. All right, well, the date of the next meeting then is April 28th, 2025.
Really? Right after all that, we're gonna come in here and do?
I take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Daniels. All those in favor? Aye. All right, meeting adjourned.